the last point, and you touched upon it already a little bit, was the preservation of Jews and Christians. You still have synagogues.
Yep.
You mentioned that there were over like 600 during the siege of Sarajevo, over, after what's considered the greatest genocide here after World War II. You still had, before the Geneva Conventions, you had Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, who laid the code of conduct for combat. And one of those things is not killing innocent men, women, and children, and preserving places of worship, which you said that Muslims actually preserved synagogues. You talked about also that the Muslims at that time, they were wearing the burqas.
Yes,
and,
to say Jewish. Yeah, that is a story from Second World War. As you mentioned, Sarajevo, it's also in European history and tourist maps, it's well known as Jerusalem of Europe, because nowhere else except of the original Jerusalem you can find religious temples, or old temples of four confessions just in 300 meters. We can find a synagogue, mosque, Catholics and Orthodox church. So those temples and religions were living in coexisting here for centuries, when something like that was completely strange for most of the Europe. Most of the prejudice we still have today about the Ottoman Empire, not only in Bosnia but also in Balkans, Greece, Bulgaria, Serbia also, are coming from 19th century, from the time when Ottoman Empire came, and the time of decadence, with lots of problems, uprisings, wars. But 14th and 15th century, really Balkans, and in that time Bosnia and Herzegovina was oasis of tolerance, in the time when Europe was fighting in religious wars, especially 17th century and the end of 16th century, after Reformation and all of these decades of war between Catholics and Protestants in Europe. So and also about your question about the Jews. After Jews were expelled from Spain and Portugal after 1492 by Ferdinand and Isabel, Spanish monarchs, they were welcomed in Sarajevo beside other cities, and parts of Ottoman Empire. Though they settled here and they started their own businesses, and to Holocaust they were around 10%, between 10 and 15% of population in Sarajevo. And during Holocaust, Muslims were saving Jewish girls and women by clothing them to burkas. That is something which really lots of people in Europe, also probably here in Bosnia, don't know. And lots of these families and people were awarded by Yad Vashem, Jewish.
And this is a historic. This is academically sound.
Yes.
This is something now, because it's a shame that a lot of this is like forgotten, hidden. History that's not really talked about.
Yes. Especially, when today that burqa or these traditional way of clothing present, during centuries here in the Middle East is considered as a oppression method or something that it's nothing good in it. So